All right, thank you very much for being here. We are, I was going to start this meeting at 6:04, so 5 now. As you received, there is the content sections, according to all of our preferences, so there's preferences. And then we're gonna try to get through as much as possible with our document. And recommendations that we may want to give to council. So we're going to start with our top one, section 8, amending the charter.
I'd like to hear from the committee on this.
This is our top.
That was the top one, so some of y'all in here have some questions or concerns about that.
Well, I know it says section 8, but it probably pertains to quite a few sections.
Well, section 8 is amending. the
It's
charter.
specifically amending the
That's
charter.
Amending the
Okay.
charter.
Yeah.
I guess I was just gonna start out by asking, I was like, I know that there's a second, it's like 40 something. That is also something about amending something.
Felt that too.
But amending the charter is specific to section 8.
Okay, what's the difference? So this one, there's one about amendments in section 48.
That has to do
Is-
with ordinances and initiative and referendums. That's different.
Okay, how?
So,
Well, we are going to do that in
so,
8.
yeah,
It's called
amending.
amendments.
Yes, but amending the charter is very specific to the process, how you amend the charter. Initiative and referendum generally has to do with the code,
Okay,
not the charter. Okay, a charter amendment is very specific
okay,
because that has to go to a vote of the people.
okay.
An initiative can be to amend the charter. It can also be to add something to our code. Referendum is asking council to reconsider an ordinance or repeal an ordinance or send it to a vote. Billy?
I feel like last time we talked about amending the charter, it was, a lot of the conversation was just like, well, that's all defined by the state
Statute.
constitution, by state statute. And I thought where we left it was that Reed was gonna do some
So,
research and come back to us with our,
well, and I think the concern is the threshold to amend a charter is fairly low.
Yes.
And for me, my bigger concern is not only how to amend the charter, i.e. get something added to it, it's what belongs in the charter.
Yeah, I see amending the charter probably a bigger umbrella of none of our citizen initiated items make any sense or correlate to each other. So amending the charter is easier from a signature standpoint than adding an ordinance, which is crazy, you know? And so that's where amending the charter for me makes sense, is that we need to look at recall, we need to look at ordinance, we looked at
Right. And
initiative, and make sure all of that language lines up. So it's all using either those that voted for governor or all using those that were registered electors.
Dealing with local issues, municipal issues, should we really be holding ourselves to the same level as votes cast in a state election when we are specifically dealing with local issues?
Yeah, well, and the
So,
challenge though right now is that it's all those registered to vote for recalls, for initiatives, for referendums, for,
well, and those are calculated differently too, depending on the verbiage, right? Some are registered to vote on the date that a petition is submitted. Some are those who were registered to vote in the last general municipal election. Some are those who voted in the last municipal registered election. So they're all very different numbers.
that's,
There's, and part of that is in statute as well. I will say that this section 8, amending the charter and the verbiage that is in there as it is, is pretty standard across the board. I checked other municipalities. And Phil, I don't know where your name went. We could not find it. But we got you fruit. It's pretty standard to what we have, and then those, the specificity is kind of in those sections that you're talking about, all the, initiatives, referendums, things like that.
Well, I guess my question, I mean, to come back to it, like, my question is, what degrees of freedom do we even have? Is there wiggle room in the, can we change the signature threshold? Can we change the voter threshold?
We can do all of it.
Please.
Read.
State law, specifically 31.2.210. That's for the procedure for amending home rule. So the fact that they have explicitly adopted a procedure on how to make changes to your charter would presume to me that the state has chosen to legislate in that area of the home rule charter. Home rule charter requires a lot of the procedural timelines for the city clerk, how long they have like signatures, how long we have to schedule an election and or special election, as well as the threshold signatures needed for the petition. So general election is 5%. And then we have kind of the nuance for our districts of those persons who live in the previous section. As well as it talks about a simple majority needed to amend those sections. So it's specific. It doesn't talk about supermajority. It's majority plus one.
Other cities have adopted in their charter new rules to amend as long as it's more restrictive than what the state does. We are allowed to have,
I'm unaware of any other
Denver and Boulder both.
cities for, are we talking specifically about amending their charters?
Yeah.
Do they do it as city or as their county?
City. So it is a thing that can be done. And I think if we're gonna put forth something, it just needs to get all of these sections in line. It almost needs to be one ballot measure of citizen initiated items need to make sense.
It can't be one, because you're limited to a single issue ballot question. And so I don't see that it's, A would be legal or B, initiative, referendum, recall, charter amendment, all into,
After the one by one.
yeah. So I don't see that it can be treated as a cleanup. Because because there are some statutory limitations. Yes, sir.
Well, I'm just gonna jump in here as far as amending the charter. United States and a number of other entities actually have a higher threshold than a majority of quorum. Reed would explain, and I'd like to see at least a consideration go to council that a higher threshold be adopted. Whether we want it to be 60% or 2/3 or something like that. It's a pretty high threshold for states to amend the constitution, so it has to be 60%.
Even Colorado is 55%. So that's changed recently.
So I don't know how detailed we need to be at all times, Colleen.
Yeah, and I think when we go to council with recommendations, they can be a relatively broad recommendation. And then if it's something that, and Reed, you can correct me if I'm wrong. But hi, Mike. I think it can be a relatively broad recommendation with maybe some examples. We can use Denver Boulder. We can use kind of that state threshold that was recently changed to 55%. And then council can decide if they want us to invest that time into further research to see what latitude we may have and kind of look at what might be a good baseline. Because remember, when we go to them with recommendations, we're gonna be recommending specific sections and saying these were concerns that were raised. And these are potential remedies for that, but we're not gonna be doing any kind of very specific. Right, we're not gonna be making a recommendation in most instances. I can see there are a few that we may, but in most instances, we aren't going to be recommending ballot verbiage.
My second piece would be if it's our process, I would make a motion that
We
we.
don't make motions in here.
Oh, I'm gonna recommend that we send something to council to consider a higher threshold.
And
I
I've
agree
written
with
that
that.
down.
Yeah.
Yep. I've written that down.
I'd also like to add to that, that any amendment to the charter has to follow the same rules as section 38, which limits our city council to what they're allowed to put on charter. And so I don't think a citizen initiated ballot measure should be allowed to add a tax or do the other things that we've already restricted from our charter, like zoning issues, taxes, and other things that don't belong there. Especially if our council isn't able to do anything with those. If people did add a tax at some point to our charter, they would not be in a position to change it. So it puts us in a bind. What's
I
that?
don't think that's realistic.
If somebody did a ballot to add a tax for something,
Well, I think it's unrealistic that citizens are unlikely to try to tax themselves.
right?
First of all, I think it's a basic example meant to persuade. I don't think it's realistic.
We have a tax language coming to us as voters from the state, of course, right? But the same could be done here.
The government would introduce, because they need it. I mean, like here in Littleton, we have infrastructure needs, is my understanding. We need it. But I don't think citizens are gonna, I don't think it's a realistic example.
Didn't we tax ourselves with the?
Every time we de-Bruce, we're taxing ourselves.
No, but like there was a ballot measure that we voted 2 years,
De-Bruce,
2 years ago.
No, that wasn't a citizen initiative.
Right.
I'm just giving an example that, is not unreasonable
There's-
for.
There's
Yeah,
examples.
but I think to put it in the charter might be a little bit, but I get Josh's kind of example.
Yeah, because I can use it,
Choice of taxes was a bad example,
Yeah.
but.
I can use an actual example and say that citizen initiatives have gone in for zoning and city council is not able to do that.
Right.
And they're also not able to change that because they're not allowed to work.
Because zoning really does not belong.
If it doesn't belong in the charter. And so there is a very real example that exists right now in 2 instances, almost 3 if you count the sewer plant. So those things don't belong in our charter. And I would like, if we're gonna make a section on how to amend our charter,
And we reference section 38.
we reference section
and-
38.
and Enact those same limitations.
I agree.
Keep it clean.
Okay, so we have 2 similar recommendations. One is just the threshold and the other one is the threshold plus extra, references to section 38. Anybody has any extra ones? Okay,
Okay,
should we do a raise of hands to show support or?
I mean, I think with the top 10, there's already enough support. I think we're just clarifying,
That's fair enough.
um,
Does anybody have a contrary opinion? I mean, maybe that's what I'm trying to make sure that you can at least voice that you don't agree, that's okay, this is your opinion. Yes, Carol, and
Well, I think what we have laid out for the Constitution is actually pretty good. And if anybody's ever circulated a petition and tried to do something like that, it's not an easy thing to do as it's presented. It was on my list of things to consider, but I would not support the 2 suggestions that have been made.
okay, yeah, thank you. Okay,
And clarification. I was not talking about the limits on petitioning. I'm talking about.
threshold, you're saying threshold is your home.
And if the threshold is going to be changed, then I believe the number of days to circulate would need to be extended.
But this, he wasn't talking about it's the.
He's talking about the threshold.
Oh, for the voters.
Yeah.
To pass it, yeah.
Yeah.
Summarize for us exactly what is being taught.
Oh, so right now
I mean, right now it's one paragraph. Okay, so what's gonna be added to this paragraph?
we don't know that right now. And we are not recommending any specific verbiage. What we have come up with a consensus, or a great majority of people have said, that we are sending this to council so that they can explore the possibility of adding a threshold of votes necessary to amend the charter, and also consider and explore adding references to section 38 on this section.
That would limit what a citizen initiated.
That's a summarization.
Yes.
That's right.
All right.
Anybody else?
Have any opposition to either of those?
Can you explain? In my understanding, the intent of the citizens have the opportunity to express and stand up at meetings, do all these other things to represent their point of view. So if we're changing the petition requirements or the petition latitude.
Well, we're not even really talking about petitioning right now.
This is just
We're
charter.
yes and no. I mean, I think what we're recommending is to hold our charter somewhat sacred like the Constitution, and not put things in it that don't belong in the charter. A charter is an overarching guide. It is not a step-by-step procedural how-to. And there are limitations to what actually belong in the charter. There's nothing that says we can't put other things in there. But because the charter can only be changed by a vote, there are some things that logically should not be in the charter.
Where is it defined what belongs in a charter and what
Section 38
Of,
Colorado State?
of our charter.
And then-
It's very specific what is not allowed in the charter.
well, I think allowed is a strong word, it's recommended.
What it says is,
Because even at the
Preferred.
constitutional level, they state what must be in a charter. But they don't talk about what can't be. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, so that's really more of a decision made at a municipal level.
That's exactly my point.
Yes.
So I don't think that, the state, exactly to your point, like I think the citizens have the right to say what should and shouldn't be in the charter. And if there are certain people, who think it's not right to have zoning in the charter, to have whatever in the charter, that's just an opinion. I'm not convinced that I'm not compelled, I should say, that we as our city don't have the latitude to decide what goes in our charter and doesn't.
And while that is the case right now, we also have to recognize that there may be future legislation that may change that.
But we're not held to, well, I guess my experience, and granted, my experience is corporate, and I'll acknowledge that it's different. Every time I've been charged with writing corporate policy that we need to follow. We're aware of coming legislation, because you have to be operationally. I know you guys probably are paying really close attention to what potentially could be coming, because you'll need to be ready to operationalize on it. But every time I've been charged with writing policy, which again is an appropriate environment, we are explicitly not expected to write policy around and what could be. Because you just don't know until it's actually written and passed, like you just don't know what it's gonna say, and it's really difficult to anticipate. I don't wanna write a policy for 5,000 people to follow and then end up having to backpedal it and do it differently because the legislation didn't come down the way I thought it would.
Right.
So we have always been coached and have followed a policy or followed a practice where we respond to what is today, legislation as it is today. Because that's all we can react to. You're aware of what potentially could be coming because you have to be, but you're not beholden or expected, and it's not considered best practice to write wording around anticipatory language.
And even with that, a great majority or plurality, 52% of our residents here in Littleton passed a statute onto our to amend the charter this past year that is against the state legislation.
But that's being challenged in court right now.
Oh, but,
So-
no, but that's my point. My point is that the current legislation, we passed something that is against it. Whether the court determines that it is or not, we passed it
Sure.
knowing that it was against the legislation, which to Josh's point, we could pass something that is worse against what is already legislated for or what is coming down. Another example, the legislature just passed the Home Act this year, which is going to put us further out of compliance because of the current situation. I'm not saying that this belongs or this doesn't belong. I'm just saying these are repercussions that we are invited to think about.
So-
And we knew that the Home Act was happening last year as well, so that is all in the
So
context.
If I may, because we could spend we could
Yeah,
spend all
we
night
could.
talking about this, and we have a lot to get through. Would the committee be comfortable when we take this recommendation to council and we address these two sections, that threshold section and section 38, if we take it, that we share with council that it was not unanimous among the committee and that there was some concern about potentially limiting what citizens could put forward.
I think that's.
I mean, because I think we need to be very candid with them and we need to be transparent with them. I also think that because this rose to one of the top 10, it deserves to go forward. I just think that if we can say that this was not unanimous. And I don't want to use words like the majority of the committee or the minority, just it was unanimous or not kind of thing.
And comments about the concerns.
Yes.
I feel like that's a fair
To
statement.
be clear, it's not limiting citizens, like to answer Carrie's concern, like there are still an ordinance path, there is still a referendum path, there are still many, many ways for citizens to be involved within the city and make these changes. It's just putting into a legal avenue where these changes belong within the city structure. So that's my take on it. Any citizen can do whatever they want because they can do it by ordinance if it belongs in ordinance, or they can do it by
That's an
charter.
opinion. Yeah.
Mhm.
Carol, do you want to?
Yeah, would you clarify what the statement would be regarding section 38 to the
To
council?
reference it, to explore whether we should
So that-
or should not reference section 38.
So that citizens would be held to the same limitations of what they could recommend to add to the charter.
And added reference 38 in section 8. Okay.
You say, what are you talking about? Subject matter?
Please don't.
Okay.
What are you concerned about? Mr. Attorney.
Well, I mean, I think the state constitution talks about it gives authority to establish home rule municipalities and talks about what the purpose of home rule municipalities are, i.e. in adopting. That's generally how we're structured. So, you know, whether we want a strong mayor or city manager council form of government, which is what we have, which is stated in the charter. How it generally operates, what powers city council has, and fleshing out the legislative process. I mean, that's kind of fair vote. But the constitution would require a city. Could we add in a bunch of stuff? Sure. I mean, it doesn't really go to those core functions and powers.
We have volunteer firefighters.
We do?
That's giving the city the authority to establish one. Normally constrained around powers and structures. But random stuff is in the eye of the beholder.
Okay. Well, let's move along to section 23, qualifications of council members. Those that want to propose some sort of verbiage, not verbiage, sorry, what to consider in this.
And so this one, you know, we touched on why an age of 21, and because when the charter was written, that was the voting age. But I think the consensus was that we don't necessarily want to address that issue. The bigger question, I think, was, do we need to ban all paid employees of any municipality? And if so, why doesn't the same logic apply to county, state, or federal employees?
I mean, we have a recusal process, and if that process is working, then we, in theory, we shouldn't have any conflicts of interest. If I'm working for whatever the city of Inglewood and we're at loggerheads on something, I would recuse myself because I'm also the city manager of Inglewood or something. So I would not take a vote on that. So this seems like a sledgehammer, if you're a janitor in Inglewood or a teacher in Centennial, or I don't know. Anybody who's employed by any municipality seems overly broad to me.
Right now, it says municipality,
Correct.
which is determined to be a city. Doesn't include a county,
That's right.
Okay.
and it doesn't include a state employee.
That's correct.
Why shouldn't it? There should either be nothing or it should include anybody.
Yeah, then I'm leaning towards nothing.
Well,
And that was tried previously and defeated.
Didn't you have an example, or you had an example? I just should have upheld earlier, but didn't, right? Because I think my concern is, there's no threshold for when someone should recuse themselves, so really being it up to subjective and someone's own honor, which, as we've unfortunately seen in life, span the spectrum. I'm sorry.
Carol and Phil.
Reed, can a council member, I thought there was only one reason why a council member could recuse themselves, and it had to do with a
Fiduciary.
It had nothing to do with a financial benefit, just saying they worked for Inglewood. And there was a decision to be made, but there was no financial gain for the council member. They would not be able to recuse themselves.
Generally correct. I would say they would be able to recuse themselves if it's like their wife that was presenting on that, they may not have a direct pecuniary interest in the outcome, but that's their job. And it's like, oh, this is my cousin or my brother. I don't get any money from my brother, having this pass, but that would probably be means proper grounds for recusal. Familial. relation.
I know we've attended council meetings, a council member tried to recuse themselves, and it is not allowed.
Well, we require all council members to vote. When it comes to a council member, a board member, a commissioner deciding to step down, they take that recusal process. That's something they have to wait. I can't make people.
Is there something in the charter about that?
Probably.
Well, and I wanted to mention something. The recusal process is not perfect because it's optional on the part of a council member to actually step forward and say they're going to recuse themselves, opposed to setting any kind of standard. And
We can make a recommendation to strengthen that too. I think I was the one who called that out and said, if they don't recuse, then they should. There's no penalty, there's no mechanism, there's no enforcement.
and
It's the honor system.
And what I might suggest we do is put it into a recusal on issues. Because there are times when state interest or county interest is not the same as the city's interest. And So there can be a conflict. And so if somebody's an employee of those, they should be in a position to recuse themselves when there is conflict.
You're saying they should be allowed?
No,
Or they should be forced?
Yes.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
Or like strongly encouraged?
But
No,
it
I'm
makes-
asking, I'm trying to understand like whether it is.
And who makes that decision?
Right, that's all I'm asking,
Who makes
because if
that
it's
decision?
option, right now it's option, right?
Attorney.
Like, I'm like, I have a ethical code, right? Like, and I'm going to abide by that ethical code, and I recuse myself if I have an financial gain. If we were to add this, would that be at that same level or at a stricter level?
I'd be okay with the stricter level.
Okay.
I mean, you have to, no one can hold a publicly elected office, whether it's a metro district or a special district or a county or city or state, not have more than one elected position. So I think the same kind of criteria should be there. Say, and I would say expected. I don't know what the word
But is this the section we want to put recusing under? Do we want to put it in a section that actually talks about voting?
We would want to put it there, but
I want to put it,
he's just mentioning that this is related to this.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, the committee, some in the committee are for expanding this to all of the offices from municipality to county to state.
Federal.
And federal.
I'm
And
just saying that because that was the word.
that's fine, that's fine. And there is also a group that does not.
But then would that also include special districts because they are quasi governmental entities? I mean.
Am I?
and that
District
could-
attorneys, but
That could be really right.
Doesn't it put us out of compliance immediately?
yeah.
If we don't modify this?
No.
Or if we tighten it up and we make it stronger than Joel.
And Kyle.
And Kyle,
For example.
Yeah, and then, I mean, my other concern is like immediately all police officers and firefighters are out.
In any jurisdiction.
And that.
They already are.
That doesn't seem right. I know, as it's written, right? That doesn't seem right.
I mean, it seems like what some people are afraid of is conflicts of interest or people not having the best interest of Littleton at heart. Like, okay, so should we ban people from Excel Energy? Should we ban people from Comcast? Should we ban people from social media? Should we ban people from liquor companies?
From social media, yes.
Or do we let the voters decide and say,
Well, that's
are you
what-
uncomfortable with a school teacher from Denver?
That's why I think that the recusal process has more teeth on this than on whether, because I mean, like, I'm personally against having the municipality, personally, right? So I'm like, just take it out. But if we're going to enforce anything, is the recusal process. That's my opinion.
I would agree.
So
that's where I'm at.
That's the proper defense.
And to make it not.
My big issue is in relation to policy. Policy promoted by another jurisdiction. Okay? And then adopted by this local. And it's a policy issue from my perspective. And because it's policy, it has nothing to do with a recusal.
Is that true?
I don't understand.
So I think, what you mean is if we were to allow employees of other municipalities, regardless of what their position is, that they could then from the dais influence policy to align with.
I've already seen it.
But I'm just asking if that's what you're saying, to align with the other municipalities' policy, that's the concern. Which
But I'm
is,
taking it further, that's why.
no, absolutely, but I would believe that that's why, when this was framed, they wanted to not have employees of this municipality or any other,
Understood.
you know,
Yeah, but like, I think of like a good chunk of us in here have met JD McCrum, right? And, you know, he's an employee of a nearby, what is it, HOA?
The city.
He's actually the town manager of.
There you go.
Town manager.
Right, town manager, right? Right, and not
So
being
he
able.
would not be eligible to run for council.
Right, but like not being able to participate in your city's government process, it just feels like.
Well, council, this is just for council.
Right.
It's
Right.
council because JD does
Right, right.
participate.
But let me ask you this, because I'm just trying to understand where you're coming from. So it sounds like you're mostly concerned about policies from other governments. I mean, that's kind of where I'm going, kind of what Billy said, like, what if just some company, like a Comcast employee wanted, you know, single, only one internet provider, right? I mean, it seems like that concept can be expanded to any type of employee from any type of industry.
I understand.
See what I mean?
I understand what you're saying.
So I don't know, I agree that the recusal process should have more teeth and there should be more emphasis and there should be more training to city council members when they should be recused, but limiting it to any type of particular occupation, I think it doesn't seem to make any sense to me.
I think it just, there's books about this, how like Americans, we have essentially, we have a higher mistrust of government than we have of companies, yet companies are the ones that exploit us most and the governments exploit us. Plethora of books. But I do agree that this is a concern, and I do agree that we should have something. Now, I want to get more clarification on what Kent is saying about policy. And if I understand correctly, Kent, you're saying that when it's a policy, the recusal process doesn't apply there, correct?
That's what I'm saying.
Okay,
And it should.
and I think that that's where like, this is coming to my mind, I was like, if we're gonna make something stronger, we make it there with the recusal process and we apply it to broader areas rather than whatever it is right now, maybe, I don't know, presentation on ordinance or
Just financial gain, like for
so just financial.
Yeah. Like, okay, so let's just use a very clear example, right? Kyle does wine, right?
Correct.
So if there was a policy in Littleton to encourage wine
Discourage.
growing, to encourage winemaking in Littleton, right? But Kyle has a state as his actual job, right? Like that would make sense to me, right?
He should recuse himself.
Right.
I agree with you. I mean, I'm with you.
That's not what I'm talking about.
Okay, yes, now let's say that they pass a law and we have to adopt it here. I understand that that's more of what you're talking about.
I understand that this probably never will happen. There will never be a change made here. It'll either be removed or there'll be no other change. But when it's policy related, the present mayor of this city is appointed by the governor.
I don't understand what that means.
He's appointed by the governor.
You mean
State.
Professional job.
Oh, his professional job.
Yes.
But he wasn't appointed.
So he has a relationship
Yes.
with,
Renew it
he
or?
has a relationship with the governor and the policies that are being promoted by the governor, which relate to home rule, which relate to zoning, which really created everything that went before on the 7th of January, 2025. No, I'm just saying that is an issue for me. It may not be an issue for anybody else in this room. And we have a member of the council, Joel Zink, who works for the city, for the county, Douglas County, Arapahoe County. And so consequently, if there's a new sheriff here, a new police chief, he's involved with, he could recuse himself, but it's an issue. If you don't want any employee, whether they work for Excel or they work for Comcast or they work for any city as a janitor or a planner or a transportation person, then get rid of the whole thing. But to me, this has been in the charter since 1959. So that's why I bring it up.
Well, that's understandable. Okay, well, we have clearly two diverging opinions. no.
Well, and
Unanimous.
what we can do is we can take this to council with the two concerns that were raised, the age limit and potentially limiting further than we already have.
Correct.
Council can take that. We can talk a little bit about those policy concerns and things like that.
I think the policy concerns is, at least I'm in.
Mhm.
Well, yes,
I'm in.
I mean, that's they should have broader standards than just financial interest.
I agree.
Yes.
And
I think
it should be.
All in agreement on that one?
Well, let me just make one. This is the second item in the top 10.
Yes.
If it weren't for what I'm suggesting, I wouldn't even have it there. I don't care whether you're 18 or 21. It makes no difference. It's irrelevant. Okay? We shouldn't even be bringing it up because of that.
No.
Yeah, but I think the other piece
The other
about.
piece is why it made it. So are we unanimous on the policy, that our city council members should consider stronger recusal, more than financial gain, standards for more than financial gain, to include other areas where there could be a conflict of interest? Is that unanimous from the CRC?
Which section is that?
Are you suggesting an added section that deals with recusal? Cause I don't
No.
think recusal is part of this.
No, it's not. It would go in a section that speaks to
Correct.
abstention and
Yes.
voting.
I just wanna know that we're in the
It
same
does not go in
37.
section 23.
37?
It will go in a different section.
Correct. I just wanna make sure that we are in agreement that this is something that they should look into. Anybody that opposes.
Well, I think it's too vague.
You think right now it's too big?
Yeah, the discussion about recusal and all seems too vague.
That's fine.
Like the conversation we're having about it, I don't know what we'd be saying to council, cause
I'm not saying that we should recommend, I'm just saying that while that currently we don't agree whether this should be brought in or struck completely.
Well, yeah, and so that's what will go to council on this section, but when we talk about.
Section 37.
Yeah, section 37, we can bring up the concern that limiting it to that, fiduciary kind of thing is too narrow. And bring up some of those other concerns, whether council does anything with it or not.
That's fine.
It might not be this council that deals with it.
Correct.
Right.
Well, but I think it should be communicated, so, okay, so to move on, so section 23, we have talked about it. A portion of our committee agrees that it should be struck completely, like the first CRC also said. And then another portion has said that it should be expanded for our other levels of government, right? So municipalities, counties, state, and federal.
Extend it to all governmental entities. That covers everything.
But that also covers special districts. And
Yeah.
you're saying that, okay, so that's okay.
All governmental entities.
Let me just mention, that the last time, in 2015, they tried to amend this to remove, and it didn't succeed. Right? So I just mention that to everybody that they need to understand that it was brought up 10 years ago and went nowhere to remove it.
It's changed.
Also, well,
Are we also striking the 21 years of age?
I don't think we're sending anything
Yeah.
about that.
Before we brought this back, we had landed on a no, there wasn't enough consensus for that.
To move that forward, like that part is not
And
important.
the part that you're striking.
That's correct, the last few words
Right.
of,
The age limitation.
the age limitation is.
Didn't rise to the level, we're not talking about
Didn't
that.
rise, I mean, that doesn't matter to me.
About any other municipality?
Yeah, any
Yeah,
other.
Any other municipality, that is, what we're saying is like,
I think it makes sense for. an
Strike
elected
it or
official not
expand
to
it.
Work for this city.
these are our options that we are sending to you, strike it or expand it. You decide which one is.
Do we, I mean, should we take a vote to see how the rooms?
We don't take votes.
Okay, should we raise our hands to get a temperature of the room of whether, how many people, I mean,
I don't think makes a massive difference.
like, I don't know, it seems like completely get rid of it or make it 10 times harder.
Sure, that's fine.
Those seem like polar opposites.
If you want, if it'll be your desire to strike it, you can raise your hand.
Strike the music.
Wait, what was the question?
If you want to strike
You
it,
wanna strike?
Get rid of
Any
the,
other
And the opportunity for.
You're just talking
That's
about
fine.
the last sentence.
Sentence.
Yeah.
Last three words, more or less.
I'm saying strike it in conjunction with
more teeth.
expanding.
Yeah.
Right,
So,
but that's two
That's
separate
different, that's
things.
different.
I know it's two things, but I'm saying
Your vote.
my vote.
Or his show of hands. His show of hands, sorry.
And vote on a third subject.
His show of hands is to strike it with teeth.
But I think we can say the majority want to strike that other municipality.
I
Yes.
thought we were saying like unanimous or not.
Yeah.
I think they both should be in there.
No, I think they both should be
We
mentioned.
don't need 11-5 or whatever it is, 11-4. I mean, that's,
so is every recommendation with 4 people going to the council?
Well,
Well, I think it was discussed. I mean, like,
I'll tell you, with these top 10,
Everything.
there was not one single section of the original 38 that had more than 3 people rank anything in the top 10. So, trying to get a majority or or a unanimous,
and it was the number 2 thing.
yeah, it's not gonna happen. So, I think that we can say some of these decisions weren't unanimous. Because I think the first one we talked about could have gotten a little contentious. I think it's okay to say that the majority of the people in the room are in favor of striking the last sentence. I don't think we have to settle on unanimous, not unanimous.
That's fine.
Because I think, yeah,
I just want to convey to council that the majority of folks on this supported one position and a minority supported.
We can have a minority position.
yes,
It's a minority position at the end of the day.
yeah, absolutely.
Section 34,
Okay, recall.
recall.
So,
To that, I would point out that we have a provision in the talks about recusal. There is recusal in the state constitution. There are criminal violations within Title 18 for that sort of stuff. But
Okay.
34.
okay.
Okay, this is about the numbers to circulate the petition. This is not captured in this section. Does anybody want to make an argument as to why it should be captured?
So what's not captured in here is the number of days to circulate.
Yes.
My recommendation in most of these sections that we are gonna talk about as far as signature thresholds, number of dates to circulate, timelines, those kinds of things, those should come out of the charter and go into the code. Because if state statute changes to, then we end up with a charter that's out of compliance kind of thing. What is required in the code regarding elections? We have to define our governing body, which we've done with our city council section. We have to provide a procedure for recall initiative referendum. But that procedure does not have to include a percentage of number of signatures. It does not have to include the number of days to circulate that petition. Most of that is covered in statute, and if we wanted to adopt anything above and beyond that, that should be in the code, versus putting it here in the charter. The number of days to circulate, by the way, is 60. And there are some differences between our charter and statute. In statute, The number of signatures is similar. It's 25% of all votes cast for the seat or district in the preceding election. Our charter is 25% of registered voters in the last general municipal election in the area represented. So it may not necessarily be the previous election, right? State statute is a candidate has to hold office for a minimum of 6 months before they can be recalled. Our charter is a year. And statute allows for a general statement of not more than 200 words describing the reason for recall. Our charter is an affidavit, which is more formal than a general statement, of not more than 300 words. And so how much of that do we want to change? Again, my recommendation would be to take timelines and numbers out and move those to the code in a more robust election section that talks about petition processes and if it's initiative, if it's going to a special election, if it's going to a regular election, because all those numbers are different, the timelines are different. Comments, questions, concerns?
Yes, Carol.
I think this section just needs the number of days to circulate the petition added. The idea of moving percentages and timelines and all of that to the code, it can be changed by the charter or by the council with a simple vote. Where this is a procedure for the citizens to hold their elected representatives accountable. And their elected representatives should not be in control of timelines and thresholds, I think.
Fair enough.
Now, I want to make sure that I understand, if I hear correctly, those timelines are set up in the statute of the state.
Statute guides.
So they couldn't say like, statutes say 60, we're gonna do 15 days. correct?
Yeah, and the thing that we need to, so as a home rule, we can be, in most situations, we can be stricter than statute. We can't be more lenient.
This one's-
I had another point, I forgot what it was. Anytime our charter or code is silent, it's something we have to defer to statute.
Understood.
And this just if it's the number of days to circulate are in here, you don't have to go to section 4, article 21 of the state
Let's
constitution.
try to figure it out.
All the information for the citizens is right.
Okay, so
But if it changes the state constitution, then we're in violation and then we need to do a charter amendment to be in compliance with state constitution.
You lost me.
Well,
You said, you basically, we don't want people to go look it up. We want to put it in here, but if it changes.
except there's a provision.
that's fine.
So we could say, you know, number of days to circulate is 60 days or as defined by, right? So if it changes,
Well, if it changes and was in our charter at 60 days, then it's 60 days. So we don't have to worry about the state making a change because we are able to determine the number of votes on our own. So I think having it here is more static than having to go and look at the Constitution, see if they've changed the dates.
questions, concerns, comments?
Okay, so there is a recommendation to add a number of days to this provision here. And the other one by city staff was to remove the timelines and put them in the code, correct?
Yeah.
Those are the two.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I do hear what Carol's saying, specifically with recall, or at least at this particular moment, specifically with recall, that it is odd for council to have control over what that looks like. Yeah, so I do hear what Carol's saying. It makes sense to keep talking about recall that in here.
Keep everything in there and just add the number of dates to circulate.
Yeah, I mean, I would be interested in maybe adding like whichever is stricter.
Yeah.
Or the state, right? But yeah, that'd be my only comment. So. Right, if statewide is, it goes from, I don't know, 60 to 120 days or whatever is more
You would want
difficult.
to keep the 60 days because that's
Um,
tighter, right? But
I probably chose the wrong example.
No.
But right, I mean, because I think the concern is making it more difficult to recall versus less difficult to recall. And if the state made it more difficult to recall,
We should keep
Then-
it's less this year.
And when it comes to recall, I don't think that we should be thinking in terms of more difficult or less difficult. I think we should be thinking in terms of what is fair. Because it is a right of the citizenry, if they are displeased with their leadership, to have an avenue to address that. And so I'm sorry, I'm going into clerk mode for a minute. I don't like to think of making it more difficult or less difficult. That isn't how we should be looking at it.
well, I probably chose poor words, right? What I'm trying to get at is Carol's core concern, right? Which I agree with.
Right.
Stay here.
Um,
Then it should stay here.
Right, but if the state comes down to make it, what's the word I'm trying to look for? To make it easier to fire, right?
Then we would want to keep it at 60 days instead of the extended, whatever.
So,
Right, that's already the way it would work in force of law is if we put the number in, we can be more restrictive but not less restrictive. So if the state goes one way, then it's our number. If the state goes the other way, then our number is now invalid.
Right.
yeah, right, that's what my point is, right? Is adding the qualifier, right? So.
Okay, so.
So are we good leaving it as is and adding in the number of days to circulate a recall petition?
Right now,
Yes.
I could collect signatures for 3 years and 11 months to recall somebody.
No, because if our code is silent, we defer the statute. So
Okay.
you would still be limited to that number of days. To Carol's point, putting it in here,
Codifies it.
well, and it makes it kind of that one-stop shop, right? Like a citizen can go to one spot and say, okay, I need to do this, and this is my timeline.
And Reed just looked it up, it's 60 days that the state.
It's the
Yeah,
same,
and
it's the same as of right now.
60 days. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
so.
that's what I had said, it's
If I
60
hear there
days.
is consensus that we should keep it. And,
Does anyone have issue with putting in the
number of days.
number of days to circulate a petition in this section? Seeing none,
Okay.
are we comfortable with calling this unanimous?
Yay.
We did it.
At least we're. unanimous in that
Y'all should have a
issue
cookie or something. Give yourselves.
statement. We are at least unanimous in that issue statement. So. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Maybe a quarter of
It's
a
not a cookie, it's a pan cookie.
Those are big cookies.
Colleen, can I,
They're from Wave the Grain.
I know, I saw that they were gluten free, or had one, it was really amazing.
Yes.
can I ask just a point of clarification
Yes.
on what you said earlier? We all sent in our top 10.
Yes,
They were, if I heard you right, they were spread all over the place.
all over the place.
So these 10 are like the most common, simple
Yes.
ones, but there are very few in there.
Yes,
Because like I looked at this and these aren't even, most of these aren't the ones that I put in.
right, it,
I wonder if everyone else did the same.
they were all over the place.
Okay,
Yeah. With very few exceptions.
that's interesting. And in the past, have you seen that?
I wasn't involved in the committee
That's
in
fine.
2014-15, so I didn't kind of see the metrics and how they did that. So it wouldn't be a fair.
Voted.
Yeah, well,
Thumbs up and thumbs down.
Yes. That's
yeah,
what
it's
happens.
not in the room.
All right, section 47.
There to be so much divergence of opinion is not to be surprised. Everybody's coming from a different place
Right.
about some issue.
And so with your permission, I would like to do 45, 46, and 47 together.
Oh, yeah.
Even though they're kind of out of order.
That's fine. I think that
It
makes
just
sense.
kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Um,
And they're in the general vicinity, so.
yeah,
I agree.
I just think it kind of makes a little bit more sense, do that. If you are okay with
I'm fine with that.
Okay. And so we've had some robust discussion, but all we captured here is, yes, we want to talk about this a little bit more. But really no specifics. So I would open the floor up to those who had concerns about initiative, referendum, submissions, which is how you get those things in front of council and citizens.
If I understand, 45 is just saying, you know, we can submit, and then actually 46 is the one that determines.
How
The
it's done, and
percentage.
so, and in 45 where it's saying any proposed ordinance, it does not have to be a formally drafted ordinance in the format that we present to council.
Right.
So, an initiative, could be, so our charter amendment 65.5 did not come in the form of a written ordinance. It came in the form of a proposed ballot measure, which was then used to create the ballot language should the petition be successful, which it was, and would be used should council decide to enact an ordinance versus going to a vote of people. Does that make sense? Anything to add on that?
I recall the concerns that we had were around the inconsistency of the percentage of petitioners across.
What,
these
Keely?
segments.
Could you speak
The
up?
inconsistencies of the percentage of petitioners required across these sections, 46 and 47. There's just a lot of different percentages
Yes.
in there.
And you're gonna see that in statute as well, because they're different processes. So with, so in our charter, it speaks to 15% of registered electors, right? In the last general municipal election, and then the timeline that we have by which to schedule elections. And the higher the signatures can force a special election. If it's 5%, then if they only give us at least 5%, but not more than 15%, then it's going to be held until the next regular municipal election. If they come in with 15% and we don't have a municipal election coming up within 120 days, then we are forced to schedule a special election. So that's why there are different levels.
Right, and then referendum is 10%.
Yeah, and so, with referendum, and I'll tell you, referendum is higher in our charter than it is in statute. In statute, it's 5%. In Title 31. So, and the other thing we need to think about is when we are dealing with citizen initiatives and referendums, we are working under Title 31, which is the municipal election code, because that is how we would run a special election. If we know for a fact that we are going to coordinate an election with the counties, then it becomes a Title I issue. But we don't know that until we know if we have a successful petition, right? And so anytime we have something coming in from our citizens, we are assuming the guidance from Title 31 if our charter or code is cited.
Is this an issue?
Well, it has been.
It's perspective.
To some it may be.
Yeah, to some it may be, it's perspective. You know, as a clerk, my job is to help citizens through the process and adhere to the code or the charter and statute if we're silent to it. It's to make sure that they have their timeline, they know the number of signatures they have to meet. We don't just give them a random 15% and they have to guess what that is. We actually pull totals from the last election. We tell them how many signatures they have. We give them a deadline. We walk through, if it's a first-time citizen who's never done this process, we walk through what a cure process looks like, right? And from that perspective, I don't see a problem because that's my job to kind of help that process along. Kent and then Phil, because I think Phil had.
So what I hear you saying is, based upon recent experience, that you've been here, this works and it's functional. That's what you said.
Yeah, I mean, I think it causes some frustrations with people. But.
It works.
Yeah.
It's not totally out of kilter.
I would want to hear Bill's perspective, because, he talked about it has caused issues, but then I would also, if y'all would indulge me, I would invite Carol to weigh in, because she has been through this process with me on more than one occasion. Bill?
Yeah, my question is about language
Okay.
in this, because it refers to order.
Mhm.
Are we taking any decision by the council ordinance? Because, I look at referendum intent. When I read this section is if the citizenry or enough of the citizenry is not happy with a decision that's made by council, then they have a chance to say, hey, you made a mistake.
Yeah.
It's not, we feel it is not in our interest.
And are you speaking about referendum specifically?
Yes.
Versus initiative? Okay.
Yeah, because the referendum is looking to reverse or change something that a council has.
Change or
decided. And so is ordinance in this section an umbrella coverage of any decision made by council, or should that be cleaned up?
Well, referendum is specific to an ordinance. It is not specific.
To any action.
Well, if enacted by ordinance.
No, I'm saying like, non-ordinance actions.
It's a decision council's made that the citizens want to challenge.
Right.
I just want to make sure that ordinance is umbrella enough, because
Well,
when I was on council, ordinance was something different. And there were other decisions that council made that were significant that we've used this section for, that I did not consider ordinance.
no, but what referendum allows citizens to do is request the repeal, not necessarily of a decision, because decisions can be made by resolution and by motion as well, right? But ordinance, because that is going to change our code. That is going to impact how we do business. And so that's what referendum allows, is for citizens to come in. It doesn't allow for them to come in and overturn a motion. Citizens can't come in and overturn the motion council made to appoint new boards and commissions members. And so we have to think about kind of that really, when council is taking action by ordinance, they're doing that through a very specific legal process, first reading, second reading, public hearing, all of those things. And they're doing so to 9 times out of 10 with an ordinance, they're changing our code. So that's the intent of referendum. So I think ordinance is the correct word there.
I agree.
Want to make,
Reed.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that.
I want Reed's opinion on this.
I don't think anyone likes mine.
I just asked for it.
So let's play, hypothetical. City council approves a contract for the Mineral Spur Trail.
No.
Just messing with me. No. I think it's a fair question. Millions of dollars, what, I don't know how much it was. Mike? No, wait, not important. They approve a contract for a project that some citizenry don't agree with, like, why are we spending this kind of money on that crap? No, you're in this area, you're into the trails. Could a citizen group file a petition or a referendum?
Was
on city
this,
council's act?
was the contract approved by ordinance?
No, it'd be resolution. The question was, does this include resolutions? The answer is no.
This is ordinances.
So if you don't like the fact that we spent a bunch of money on the Mineral Spur Trail, then you gotta
No use.
probably vote out those council members next time and try to stop.
So then my assessment that it is ordinances only was correct.
That is correct.
Okay, and that's where I would,
Ordinances are laws.
I understand that, and that's why, I'm wondering whether it maybe should be broader.
No.
My question.
Well, that's me, which is, I'm gonna make.
So city council, and maybe this is a bad time to bring this suggestion up or this hypothetical. City council approves my employment agreement. And we get what? 5%, 10% of the folks that are like, we're not giving you any money, you're not giving him a raise. And that should be up for an election.
I didn't say that, but.
Well, I mean,
But
it's just an example.
You could.
I said should be broader. I didn't say broadest. I said broader,
That's
because
fair.
there's things that can be passed in different ways. Because, there would be a question of every zoning decision.
yeah, well, zoning it's are done by way of ordinance.
By ordinance.
But then, you mentioned the spur trail could be a question, which is a contract expenditure that's not a personnel item. Okay. So
You're saying there are more areas
yeah,
that you would.
I feel like my concern with expanding it to be contracts is that there's gonna be a lot of money spent but the contract might be done by the time we make it to like, it's a long process.
Well, the
What's the
thing-
council petition?
Pretty quickly, yeah.
Yeah, and the thing
Yes.
with referendum, referendum ties back to the efficacy and implementation of the ordinance, which is 30 days after final publication after passage. And so just so you understand how that timeline works, this is quick. So if an ordinance passes in the second reading and public hearing on Tuesday night, we post the legal notice of passage on Thursday. It's 30 days from that date. Now I'm gonna throw a little wrinkle in, because we have a section in our charter that states ordinance do not take effect less than 7 days after publication on final passage. However, we are still held to the 30-day
I
referendum.
I was talking about like Reed's example.
Right,
So,
but,
like if there's a contract put into place by council
uh-huh.
and then somebody tries to do a referendum to refute it, like what happens if it comes?
So because-
after the contract has already been completed?
Well, it would not be completed, because I'll tell you that 30 days. So a citizen would have to come to me within that 30 days and say, we want to file a referendum. And they would have what's left of those 30 days to get the signatures they need and to get it verified. That happens fast. And what happens is if the signatures are valid and they are sufficient, that ordinance, that action is suspended until council either repeals it in its entirety or repeals the section or sections that the citizens have concern with. And if they don't do that, it goes to a vote and it stays suspended until such time that it is overturned by vote or that question loses. And then it becomes enacted again. So the chances that any multi-million-dollar project would be done in 30 days, this is the government here.
But there could be costs incurred, certainly.
Sure.
I mean, I think to your point, you know, initiative and referendum are extraordinary tools for extraordinary situations, not designed to micromanage or second guess these kind of minutia. They're really for extraordinary situations.
I would propose on this, this gets to the nature of what we're talking about here, that we're starting to really get involved, get deep into representative government and stop, like the whole point of representative government. And the main thing to hold our people accountable is elections. We elect people to do a job. That's in my opinion. Now, we have some protections that are in here if it gets egregious. I don't think we need to make that even more so. I would suggest listening to this conversation, I'd say I have no recommendations on these three. I would say they're fine. Let's move forward.
Carol?
Section 48 has never made sense to me. Why?
So section 48, that speaks to, and I don't even have it up there.
Special elections.
Yeah, special election, why?
Oh, so ordinance is adopted or rejected by electoral vote under either the initiative or referendum cannot be revised, repealed, or amended except by electoral vote. Council shall have the power to submit a proposal to repeal or amend without a petition thereafter, provided that any questions submitted at a special election not be submitted within that 2 years.
So what's sacred about a special election that it gets a 2-year hiatus? And to be honest, when you look at that, I can see why somebody would want to go and do a charter amendment. Because charter amendment protects the citizens. A referendum or, excuse me, an initiative is something that could be overturned quickly by council, so they can undo what the voters did.
Yeah,
I think if this read that anything that was passed by the citizens in the way of an initiative or a referendum, that it could not be submitted for change for a year or 2 years. And forget the special election part. I don't see what the difference is.
Yeah, and you know, this has been in the charter since its inception. And not being in the room at that time to understand the why. Would the committee be amenable to adding section 48 to 45 through 47 to take to council and ask?
Before we do that, if I understand correctly, Dan said that he does not have any recommendations for these sections.
You're right on my bingo card with it.
Okay.
My vote is.
That's fine.
Including 48, they're not high
I
in.
want to make sure that we pass that information, so we have at least two.
Well, I have one problem that we haven't even addressed.
Yeah, that's where my head's at.
And in section 46, when it comes to the petitioning, because of the differences and the no guardrails in section 8, it is far more signatures that I need to present an ordinance than it is to present a charter amendment.
Correct.
That's kind of an issue. That's a problem. And so that's my problem with 46.
Guided by statute. So.
But we are a home rule.
But we can be more restrictive than that.
Yeah, it's because
Yeah.
if I came and sat down with you and said, I want to change things, and you told me I need.
You know. That's where we're gonna start with that right there.
That's your special.
Next.
Well, to submit an ordinance would take say 2,000 signatures, where to submit a charter amendment would take about 1,000 signatures because of the difference, because there's about a 60% people show up to vote.
1,800 versus 5,400.
For
That's a huge difference.
Yeah.
Right, the term.
2,800.
Yeah, it was,
1,842.
Significant. It's still half of what it is to do an ordinance. It's no, and because the math is 5% of those that voted for governor to do a charter amendment, or 5% of those registered to vote.
Mhm.
And in most governor races, we only get about 50 to 60% of people to turn out in the first place. And so you're talking about a number that's literally half of the other.
What is your recommendation here?
Well, so that's what I just want to bring that up, because even if that were at 10%.
Are you looking for more latitude, like, or a more
No.
evil play?
He's looking to
I keep
reference.
saying evil. It's Freudian.
He's looking to make sure that our, like what we talked about in section 8,
Yeah.
that these sections are referenced to each other.
Yeah, well, I don't want to give people the incentive to just constantly revise our charter over little things. Because it's the same number of people that need to vote for it in the election. There's no guardrails on what I'm allowed to put in the charter as a citizen. So like, why would I go through the extra effort to do an ordinance? And that's my concern with this.
I absolutely hear what you're saying. I will tell you, and I've been in this city a minute, not as long as others, but, I don't know that we have citizens out there that are frivolously thinking, what can I do next to muck up the charter and let me find out how many signatures I need. I'm gonna go get them and the city's gonna spend tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars to get it passed. I mean, I think we have citizens who, when they are feeling extremely passionate about something, they bring that forward. I mean, in my 15 years, I have seen 2 charter amendments come through from citizen-initiated petitions.
Well, I don't think that's the.
Well, I think that's a lie. I've seen 3, 1 failed.
That's the point of contention though, right? Because when someone goes through that kind of effort, people believe very strongly in it, right? But when you're faced with that decision, if it is far easier to make a permanent change versus far harder to work with your representatives and a representative government to make them better, then why would you ever do that? Right? That's the real issue
Then
here.
what is the recommendation?
Well,
What are we taking to?
I would make a recommendation. I'm persuaded on this because I believe that charter is like the foundation. And all the other things are the walls and the lighting and the fixtures, right? And we should make it, the foundational document should be at least as hard.
Yes.
So I would put this back on there to
At
make
least
a
the same-
recommendation that going back to these sections, they're fine, but I would amend section 8 to say whatever that threshold is to do those be at least,
Yeah.
and it should be the same percentage of, I don't know how, registered voters or whatever. That would.
Whatever that numeric is, it needs to be.
But I think that is this, I lived in California for a while, right? And I will just tell you, the state of California, they have it, it's easy to amend the state constitution. So their constitution is massive and it's filled with all sorts of things that have nothing to do, I mean, it has to do with streets in some cities now because it's easy to amend and it's become not a foundational document. And so I would suggest theoretically listening to this, that we make, that the foundational document is important. We should make that one harder to do, or at least as hard as the other avenues.
At least the same level of effort.
So going back to section 8, maybe it needs to be the same petition guidelines to at least do an ordinance and a 55% vote, or bring this one down.
Dan, well stated.
All right, so these 3, no recommendation to council, correct?
I want-
Or a minority.
For cleanup, you know, you talked about having some kind of a cleanup. It would be really informative for a citizen reading this document if it referred to the state statute on initiative and referendum. And we have one, I guess it really doesn't matter if the language in the statute is different than the language here as far as the percentage of voters, instead of registered voters and registered voters who voted in the election. And that's.
Right.
You do in practice is not what the language says.
Right, because we deal with some contradictory language with registered voters, registered to vote, or voters who voted in the last election, and then we sometimes deal with qualified electors, which are none of the above, right? So, it's having to understand those differences. But I agree, like maybe making a recommendation to add in some reference to statute.
And I would make a comment about section 8
48.
versus this.
No, she's talking about
Section 8 versus this. Section 8 is 5%, but it has to go to the voters. This 15% or 5%, it doesn't have to go to the voters. It can be passed by the council.
Council could take action on their own.
Difference. And going back to what you had said earlier, Carrie, that this is really for the citizens to hold their council and to shape their government. And I don't think we should make it any harder than what the state statute or state constitution prescribes.
Okay, so that is Carol's recommendation. So for now, is there anybody that supports that? Okay, if it's a minority, but just wanted to make sure that anybody else supports it.
Yeah, so just to make it easier
To add,
where to look in the state.
Yeah, to make it easier to look in the state, yes, correct. Like,
I like that.
yes.
That sounds pretty simple.
just wanted to make sure that, okay, perfect.
Okay,
And then we will add to section 8, I heard a strong majority, to consider not only the threshold, but also the threshold to put things on the charter, correct?
On the ballot.
Signatures and the vote.
Correct, signatures and the vote.
Consistency.
okay.
All right,
Okay, so that got us through referendum initiative. And, okay, so now we're gonna move on to section 36. Did I run past it? Look, I highlighted them, so I wouldn't do that. Okay,
I know.
and so I think with this, we just wanted to add definitions of all three documents.
Under Article
to-
3.
Yeah,
Yes.
if that's still
I believe so, yeah.
the wish of the committee.
Yes.
To just have a
I
clearer
wanna make sure that
understanding
they're-
of what each kind of action
Means.
and when it's appropriate to be used.
I think that one's important because of what Phil mentioned
Right.
of the whole referendum only applies to an ordinance, not to a resolution or motion.
Okay.
For a moment.
So then do we have consensus or a unanimous want to add definitions for those three actions to definitions?
Yes.
I like that.
I think it's.
Anybody
straightforward.
opposed?
Just real quick, does that have to go to the voters?
Well,
It
it would,
would.
because it's a definition change, we'd be adding definitions. The definition section,
It can be a catch-all.
yeah, that can be, should this section be amended to include definitions for? And a list and all the things, right?
Because we also say home rule as well, right?
Yeah, home rule,
To add it.
we have several sections where we'll be adding that, they just didn't come to the top.
I know.
And then the other catch-all that I will be doing is going through all the sections and finding references to outdated technology, publication sizes, things like that. That's not reflected on here because that's something we've already decided needs to happen. So, okay.
I'd like to propose a 5-minute break.
Can I just make
Yes, sorry.
a quick comment? I think the whole issue of definitional and cleanup is absolutely important because it streamlines this foundational document that you've talked about, rather than it being amorphous. So I would agree with all of those that we can do that are definitional or cleanup.
Needs to be padded.
Technology, yes, I mean, I think that's great.
Yeah. Did we want to take a 5-minute?
5-minute break? Okay. Okay. Section 89. Oh, yes, okay.
Yeah, so read you wrong.
Essentially, the issue, the alleged issue would be the 3 and 7 times the assessed valuation of the taxable property, correct?
89.
Trying to establish what our maximum general obligation bonds can be for the city. That is obviously something, obviously, but in order to do the general obligation bond, we have to go to the voters. I will tell you, that state law says no more than 10%. Most, we do a study on this on one of our study sessions where we looked at what a lot of our neighboring jurisdictions did. And it's more than.
This is amongst the laws.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so I just wanted to open this up by saying, if I remember Kent's words right, I fully agree. This should be a tool that we have at our disposal as a municipality to borrow money.
To ask
so-
elections.
Ask to
Yes.
borrow.
Let voters decide.
Right, yes. So I think it's a pretty straightforward recommendation, so.
Second.
And we wouldn't venture on the percentage, right? We will let council decide that.
I think you can weigh
Well, it needs to be more.
Yeah.
To be clear, we don't want less.
Council would appreciate it if you weighed in. So if you felt strongly that it should match the state limits, say that.
I don't think so.
If you think it should be something between that, say that.
Yes, I think somewhere in between. Yes, Ken.
Let me, I think I stated this last time. This was one of my top ones. It's because I talked with Steve Barr.
Yeah.
Who was my council representative. He said this was an issue that should be looked at. Now, I respect the staff having a better understanding than I might. I wrote what is there. And maybe there's a better way to do it, but I think that it needs to be looked at and thought about. Steve wouldn't have told me. Steve's a sharp guy and he dealt with this kind of stuff. So if you think it's real critical, then we do something.
I mean, it is a financial tool. You know, obviously, the way that bonds work, you know, let's just say we raised our debt limit to something crazy. Let's just say it's 90%. Like, no one is actually going to give us that money if you're that leveraged.
The
So-
lender's not gonna loan us
Right,
money.
right.
Does anybody have a percentage? So we heard that state is 10%.
State's 10%, like school districts are like 20%.
Well, state's maximum 10%, right? That's the
State's 10.
maximum.
State's 10, school districts are 20.
Wow.
And
So in theory, you could actually probably argue more than 10, but I would stick with 10.
what would be, do we know just like the comparable for the local cities that are nearby, like roughly
There's some that match the state and then most of them are between that.
between?
Between 3 and 7/8 and 10%.
10%,
Yeah.
okay.
So are we the lowest then?
Yes.
I think we're either the lowest or we're one of the lowest.
There was a,
I mean,
Maybe Sheridan is low.
Yeah, that's right. The town of Beaumont was.
Oh,
If
bummer.
we reference the state limit in our charter, then if the state limit increases, then we get to increase it.
So something like not to exceed.
No, just the state limit.
I think the state limit.
I'm in agreement on
Fluctuates, I don't think it's gonna.
Well, because we still have to vote on it, right?
You have to, yeah, you have to ask the voters for the money, so it could be anything.
And the city of Littleton in general is conservative. We have 0 general obligation debt right now.
Currently.
I mean, and so will we use some? Definitely at some point. It's an important tool. But will we ever go crazy? That's not our history.
I'm gonna say, you can go to the state limit. I think that's fine. But I would put the caveat, there needs to be a plain language ballot measure to actually implement. Because I wouldn't, you're not gonna put that language in here, but
Right.
I would put that footnote somewhere that says to have a plain language for folks to understand, because I think a lot of folks don't necessarily understand what the obligation means.
Phil, are you talking about plain language on a charter amendment
No,
validation?
no.
Not a general
On the
obligation?
general obligation.
Yes.
I'm talking when you're looking for that permission to use. Because I'm not gonna change,
Yeah,
go out to the electorate to figure out whether you actually have that authorization,
yeah.
okay? And what that means, and to make that a plain language, but that's the footnote I would put.
I'm with you. The state is pretty strict on what language has to be included in ballot language when it comes to this kind of thing. And so the lawyers strictly comply with what the state requires, and it's not plain language.
Well, that's.
And I also think this is one of those types of things that is going to require some communication, some education,
Correct.
some, you know,
And that's where.
community outreach and things like that.
Right, this one is definitely, and I would say that regardless of what the state requirements are on language, that somewhere along the line in the explanation of the ballot issue,
Yes.
it would be
Plain
plain
language.
language.
Yes.
You are right. That's right.
So if I hear correctly,
Will you remind me again, what's the numerator and what's the denominator? Of the 10%?
So is the 3 7/10 of the
0.7.
value is what's the state's 10% of what?
I think it's not 10% of the appraised value, which is different. It's 10% of assessed valuation. Let me.
It might be different language. That's a good question.
Which when we did the math, I
The
think.
only legal numbers you're gonna have is assessed valuation.
I scribbled down notes that the 3.7% limit was $49 million, and if we went up to 10%, then the limit would go to $132 million.
And Phil reminded us that we couldn't have paid for the CK situation with either of those.
Yeah, that's true. That intersection at Santa Fe was
Right?
more than twice that.
Right? So.
Okay.
You go to the federal limit and make it 180%.
Well, and the strange thing here is that the limit does not relate to some extent. Is we don't really have much in the way of property tax in the city. And so it is kind of funky.
I think that's my only, like, on a personal level, I fully support. My question is, I don't know that I would responsibly recommend or say disapprove a certain percent, because I just don't have enough financial acumen on this particular topic to feel that I can make a responsible decision as to whether 9% or 7% or 14% is the most responsible answer.
All I was gonna say is that the state's 10% is the state does not have a property tax either. So it's just a number that's out there that kind of said, hey, you got a population out there and you got a bunch of homes out there. But the thing is, if you default, they aren't gonna
Yeah, then what?
take the homes.
Right, yeah.
What they're gonna do is they're gonna hurt your rating and you're not gonna be able to go out for a loan in. Should they ever get. Or.
No, that's fine. Okay, so I hear that there is a general recommendation that this percentage number needs to be changed. We do not have, well, Carol said state statute,
I would recommend.
and everybody else says state statute as well.
As long as folks realize that the state statute and then what we would take doesn't really relate to our current tax revenue base.
Doesn't right now,
What?
does it?
Sorry, Phil.
It doesn't for the state either, so
Yeah.
it's just, it's.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
it's based on
Assessed
assessed valuation of taxable
It's
property.
just,
Our city revenue comes from sales tax.
yeah.
So they are,
But assessment rate has nothing to do
It's
with,
finance math.
yeah. Right.
Why can't we leave that number to the staff and the finance director
Which is fine.
to come up with what would be appropriate. It could be the state or whatever the state determines in the future, that it could be something different. You know, that would seem to me to be a lot better than trying to play around with 10, 14, 20, 30.
Fine with me. I think we all agree that this should be changed. I don't necessarily know which
Should be
percent.
increased, I would say, not just
Be
changed.
increased, yes, yes, should be increased, and then we let, finance to determine.
I would like to tack on Phil's main point though, about the plain language requirement. I think that's something we should also
Okay.
recommend if everybody else.
I will make that,
That's a recommendation not included in the charter.
not to include in the charter, but just to kind of mention it.
Oh, that's a fair point. That's not really what we're here for.
Oh, but I think it's important that council hear.
But I think it can be part of the conversation.
Yeah, fair.
Absolutely can be part of the conversation.
Part of the explanation for the ballot language, if it's what the state requires, that's one thing, but then. We'll go through something.
Section
We are now going to section
70.
70. There we go. So this was, removing reference to line 15 and the question on if the finance director would be open to a range of dates. I had opportunity to speak with her. I don't know, Reed, did you as well? And he seemed fine with it.
Okay, because we wanted people to have opportunity to look into it before it was approved. I remember.
Yeah,
that
she
conversation.
was fine, replacing that September 15th date with, a range, I believe. She did not let me know what those were, but she was amenable to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
To giving a little bit of latitude there.
Do you think that a range of dates? I'm thinking about council elections, it would be nice if the budget was set before a new council seated. So you don't have a new council trying to figure things out.
So it would have to be adopted before the end of October. Or- because we usually cancel,
Or, yeah.
well, but
Towards the
new,
end of November.
new council comes in the second Tuesday after the election, so they do have a regular meeting.
Okay, that's
We're
right.
fast.
Yeah, and so,
Get them in.
and we usually cancel election night. That's why I'm saying the end of October.
I guess we could ask,
Mhm.
I mean, and I guess our recommendation here is that, yes.
To
we
have
should-
it adopted before council seated.
Yeah. I think that's a fair assessment.
Wasn't the previous conversation, Reed, from the financial director, that it's kind of not possible to do it
Correct.
by the current
correct.
date? Is it possible to do it by the end of October?
I'm trying to sift through several.
The thing is, to Carol's point, there are a number of financial things that the council has to go through between the new seated council and the end of the year, that they have to deal with. So it's a fire hose.
And we also,
That has to do with when we seat council. That's why a lot of other places won't do it.
That's about-
at the beginning of the year.
right, and we also discussed that we should change that, the seating of the council.
Yeah,
to-
that's one of the
Not on
lesser,
our
it's
issues yet.
one
Not
of
yet.
the lesser. Yes.
It's like 45 days from the time that they're seated until,
Yes.
I mean, that's
So I think we should keep it.
worse than drinking out of a fire. I mean, it's a lot,
Yes.
especially if there's 2 or 3 new people.
So we can certainly circle back with Lori and, talk about, recommended date ranges and speak to, the potentiality of having the process prior to new council being seated. But we are, again, going to talk about that section,
Correct.
about maybe changing when new council
Proceeded.
is seated.
Correct. Yes. Does anyone have a position to changing the date? I don't know any, but just wanted to ask again.
You want to say something?
No, I mean, we're all in concurrence.
Okay. But then we will go.
Consider changing that to a more workable. Okay, 65.5.
There we are.
Yes.
Can the staff give us an update on what the council is doing? That's right now.
I mean, read.
I have no clue.
So we actually had an executive session on Tuesday night to talk about the legal ramifications, some legal questions regarding how 65.5 aligns with some of the recent state mandates. I can tell you that if you came in and tried to get a permit for an ADU and you weren't one of those very few alley loaded locations, it would be denied. So, it is what it is. I mean, I'll just tell you from my opinion, there are some things that need to be resolved with the language, and that resolution comes through courts or it comes through a future charter amendment.
And you mean the course, the 6 cities?
No, it probably has someone
Lawsuits.
challenging the city or the governor challenging the city or AG.
Okay.
The one saying, hey, it doesn't look like you're in compliance with state statute that required you to have this adopted.
So that's what you're talking.
So you're probably looking at a property owner who can't build an ADU, and they're pointing to the state law saying state law says that we can, and I'm pointing to our charter saying it technically says we can't, because it goes back to January 1st, 2025, when ADUs were not permitted through our residential zoning districts.
Would you recommend changing?
I don't know if the date helps, because as we've seen with Home, and I don't know if Home, for those unfamiliar with the Home Act, essentially what the Home Act does is it allows for certain nonprofits, those with a demonstrated history of building affordable housing, or school districts, transit agencies, to be able to, they don't say this, but the reality is they can purchase property and build residential, and we have to approve it administratively.
They can purchase property or they own the property?
They can purchase property.
They can
Purchase property and own it.
Okay, so RTD could go out and purchase property all over the city.
Or SMHO or, yeah.
LPS.
So how does that interact with this? Explain that. If fixing the
Oh.
date.
Yeah, so, where it interacts is potentially there are certain state mandates that require us to change our zoning that we technically can't because of our charter. So we're out of compliance with state law, just like the ADUs.
Okay, so it's not the ADU element, it's the LLR and MLR.
Well, it's,
If we were trying to fix the ADU issue.
Yeah, and you
would
said
changing the date fix it?
no, because changing the date may fix the ADU problem,
That's
but
what-
it doesn't fix
The
the
home.
Home Act problem or whatever.
The new one.
Whatever the governor
Right.
and legislators think is
So-
appropriate.
So,
Maybe
yeah,
we need to wait for the lawsuits.
well, those have been filed. I mean, that was filed in May. It's been briefed since October and it's still waiting for a ruling. And that doesn't deal necessarily with ADU. It deals with whether
The state can mandate those changes.
Preempting.
Yes, that's correct.
authority. So Home Act allows, let me, just real quick. So Home Act would allow for these privileged property classes to own property and then construct residential. But my concerns are that they can just go into, let's say, a commercial area where, and it may not be as huge an impact for the city of Littleton, because a lot of our CM allows for some level of residential anyways, but if your cities that have like, this is our business, that's a lot of time, this is where we're gonna get our sales tax, and then suddenly someone comes in there and like, this is a great place for multifamily, and you're like, that's where we envision that Home Depot. So now we're, and great, you got housing, but you've lost out on.
So that entity then can go buy property other than what they may already own in the
There's
city.
nothing in there that says they have to have held a particular piece of property for a period of time, so there's some.
Very sloppy,
I think it's very intentional. I don't think it's sloppy.
intentionally sloppy.
I think it's intentionally providing the opportunity for homes to be built.
So my job is to think
Really, and they care.
really pessimistic about stuff, and then the holes of things.
I can see that.
Reality, is it really gonna, is SMHO gonna go buy a bunch of
I
stuff?
can see that. That's extremely problematic.
So my question is like, there's a lot of sections through here where, you know, with elections or finance or taxation or this, that, and the other, where we're just like, yeah, just ignore that. That's superseded by state law. That doesn't apply. That's not in effect. Like, really, this should be corrected, but whatever. So why doesn't that apply here? This is clearly in violation of state law, so why don't we just ignore this like we ignore all the other sections? As far as like ADUs specifically.
Well,
If we ignore it, it's going to have a consequence either in a court making a decision or potentially the state, you know, inflicting the Home Act or other things, you know.
someone
We're
else
not- we're not fighting for all those other sections and saying, no, like we supersede state law. Like, we're gonna wait for a lawsuit to come at us to decide this. Why are we drawing that line on this one and not all the other sections that are
fundamental
violation of state law?
whether or not the city can preempt us, or the state can preempt us as it relates to land use, zoning, and housing.
Not specifically and not for elections or finance or other things.
Well, the difference is that, one, we have a lot of constitutional and case history that have given local governments the, you know, exclusive right to regulate our own things and so on. When the state comes in and starts saying that this is a matter of statewide concern, like taxation, elections, which they have, then it allows them, just based upon our own hierarchy, to be more restrictive, but not less restrictive than the state. That's where that comes in.
Basically, there's case law to decide those. There's not case law to decide this. Yeah.
Following up on that, if hypothetically the state wins the current lawsuit with the other 6 cities, this is void.
I think there
Because
was,
it's a statewide concern, right?
no, but there would have to.
I mean, I like on a kind of like I'm trying to understand it.
It wouldn't void our charter.
Not void,
No,
but like,
this section.
but like now we are deferring.
We'd be out of compliance.
Well, but like in the same way that Billy said, the elections and the stuff that is in the charter automatically just defers to the state because it's a statewide concern. If the state were to win in this zoning case.
Can we go in order? Cause I think.
Now Carrie,
what's happening
Keely, and then,
is-
sorry, I interjected. I'm sorry about
It
that.
doesn't- So it's not going to void our charter. Doesn't make it unconstitutional. Until someone takes us to court and says,
Got it.
until a court rules. I mean, we've had lawsuits before, like there's a section somewhere. I don't even know if we highlighted it, but it talks about having exclusive jurisdiction over all appeals of city, something. We went to court. And we kind of lost.
Just a smidge.
We ultimately won, but that was that. So we have a provision in the charter, which is technically great, but we've never taken steps to remove it. So, but yeah, if on this other ruling, we have a ruling that says that yes, housing is a matter of statewide concern and state can mandate whatever they want for jurisdiction, would that mean that suddenly we're going to change our charter? Or just ignore this provision saying, sorry, there's a court case out there that says that they have the authority to do this? No. The state can sue us, that's fine. Or someone who, or on the other side, someone else who, what if someone who supported 65.5 and understood it to mean something to them? If they wanted to, we started ignoring it, then I have someone suing us saying, wait a minute, we got a charter provision voted on by our people.
So you would wait for the state to sue?
Someone has to make a legal determination would have to be made on our specific charter provision and whether or not it is constitutional or not.
Fair enough.
So let me ask you.
Have a lot in it.
Gary, Keely, and
So I have a question and a recommendation. My question regarding this one, I've never understood about the home act. And maybe I just didn't read it well, but can these, because my opinion changes based on this answer. Can, church, transportation agency, whomever, if they purchase land and build residential housing on it, is it for their use? So like, I want to house my clergy, I want to house my bus driver.
It could
or they
be, but
become
it's not necessary.
No, there's nothing in it.
landlords,
It could
sorry.
be market rate.
Okay.
So most likely wouldn't be market rate, but
Most likely would.
someone could build market rate to fund their other more philanthropic type things. It doesn't apply to religious institutions anymore. That was last year.
I
They were
see.
taken out, so it's just our own school districts and
Nonprofits.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. My recommendation on this one is to just change the date from January to July, because didn't ADUs pass here in Littleton and was it June or July?
Somewhere July, yeah, in the summer.
And the reason rationale for that is that alleviates, my hope is that it makes life easier for city members to approve ADUs as they're presented to you. And that takes away a lot of our risk
No.
on the front of ADUs. Now, when I make this recommendation, I do have, one thing I don't understand is we have all these people who voted for this the way it's written, so I don't honestly know how it works to say, hey, however many thousands of people you voted, or you signed a petition that was worded this way, and then however many thousand more people you voted on language worded exactly this way. We now are gonna go change the date. Like, I don't know the legality of that, so just like calling myself out on that. But it seems to me like that's an easy way to honor what people voted for, but take away some of the risk and make it easier for you all to operate.
That's a reasonable recommendation.
Okay. Keely.
I rescind my.
Phil.
I forgot.
Okay. Ken.
With the way this is written and the state legislation of the 5 things that were passed by the state a year ago, this is the ADU is the only one that relates to this, right?
maybe the density, but that's not really a different type of use. That's, I think that that's probably correct. Yes.
Okay. So we have an established ADU, but it's constrained in certain areas. Right now.
Correct.
You have to have an access off of it's like that, off an alley or something.
Downtown, yeah.
My issue, and I'll just indicate it real quickly, is that you've got 100 members of the House and the Senate determining what the separation from an ADU to the property line is absolute. It's not the ADU issue for me. It's the requirements of within the context of that. That makes no sense to me because those 100 people know nothing. Big zero. And yet it's not, instead of enabling, you must have ADU, right? But not how you get actually gonna do the.
But I think this, and as I've thought about 65.5 over the last how long, You have a very specific opinion on what this means. Some other people have a different opinion. Some other people think you can still build ADUs. I don't know what you guys are fussing about. But people voted for this, maybe to keep things the same, or maybe to keep the state out of our business. I mean,
No, I understand that.
Okay. Carrie had a recommendation to change the date to July, or whatever the
Whatever
date
the date
is,
would be.
for compliance, correct?
Not
Like, you know.
There was nothing else added between the election and.
Let's just say August
You could
1.
just say as of the election.
Yeah, like I was thinking July 1st, because my recollection was that this had to be passed by June 30th.
Something like, I do recall.
But to Reed's point, if you said as of the date of this election, or, you know,
Same thing.
We'll just change it to a 26, so it's less confusing. We're not saying until June 7th of.
Sure. I mean, nothing has been passed, correct?
That's it, the
For
ADU is the only
zoning,
one.
that's it.
I only came up with it because that makes it clear that
Well,
like,
the notification ordinance would
Yes.
maybe have a little bit.
Oh, but let's deal with this part, right? So like, so there's a change of date.
a date to be determined by staff.
Correct. Date to be determined, that would honor the original intent.
Honor
you
the
know,
intent.
Like that way, it's not like, just as an example, right, not saying that this will happen, but I'm saying like, the council passes something, you know, this next meeting, and then the staff is like, oh, it's fine, like, you know, like, no, I think, you know, voters, we voted on this and should be honored for that.
If that's the case, can we also perhaps float the idea of recommending a different male class?
That's fine with me. I just wanted to deal
Class
with.
of male, a different class of male.
Instead of being
Not-
first
not like-
class,
He's trying to focus on one
I wanna
item.
focus on one at a time. So does anybody have an issue with changing the date? Like saying, I don't agree with that, or we should have something completely different?
So changing the date does not solve the fundamental problem with this, which is just, it's really sloppy and extreme and it doesn't belong in the charter. Half of our city is small, medium, large acreage. This charter amendment sets those in stone. Uses of January 1st permitted. That's it. So we can talk about ADUs and we can talk about moving it to July and we can talk about complying with one state law, and that solves one tiny problem that was already well foreseen ahead of the November vote. That people passed a law that's or a charter amendment that contradicts state law, but this is we're gonna be whack-a-mole for the rest of our lives that this is in effect. City council can never change anything about land use for half of our city.
Actually,
You can only do it
But I
by
think the
charter.
citizens-
actually, that's not what that says. And that's not how some people interpret it, because what that says is, if city council wants to change something, they have to notify.
You know, a comprehensive rezoning.
Correct, a comprehensive
Land
rezoning.
use is fixed.
Land use first. That is if we don't change land uses. But because tomorrow I could.
We can't change anything the way you can.
No,
move the land.
because, for example, right, like, you know, I'm saying this is a possibility. Like, the council says, we're not gonna call it small lot residential anymore. We're gonna call tiny lot residential from now on. All of a sudden, like, this is void. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes, but it says,
You know,
it says SLR, MLR, LLR, ACR, limited to uses specified in the LUC in January 1st.
I understand that. I understand what you're saying, Billy. What I'm saying is that what you're saying is you're painting a picture that says nothing can be done. And that is not
That is
necessary.
one interpretation, and we're waiting for the courts to tell us the correct current.
The point is that there's many interpretations of this
That's exactly
broadly
the.
written rule,
Okay,
and
so-
we haven't done an interpretation ordinance to say how we're gonna honor this or interpret it and go forward as a
Yeah,
city.
So I'm not the Supreme Court. I don't have the one true interpretation. That is my reading of it. I think that's a valid legal reading of it. I don't know what the,
You want it gone, right?
So.
yeah, I don't think it's appropriate, but
It passed 55 to 45. It wasn't even close.
52 to 48, to be exact.
okay.
So
so how many voters was that? Does anyone know?
there's about 3,000 voters.
I think that changing the date is like from a political perspective, There were 55% of the people who voted in the last election who wanted that, or 52.
I mean, they
I would also like it gone, but I don't think we or council can or should. And I think that changing the date fixes an imminent problem. And
We can
that's
concern
kind of all
ourselves
we
with
can
later.
concern ourselves with.
I agree with
Well, there's,
that.
there's gonna be something in 27 that we need to amend the
I
charter. There'll be something in
understand that.
28 that we need to change the charter.
But you
To
can't,
Gary's point, we can't think about what may be.
We can think about what's
can't-
right now.
We can't plan for that when we're thinking policy.
Well, but we can say though that it was very clear to voters, because it was in the petition, it was on the actual ballot,
This is true.
that it was January 1st, 2025.
Right.
Right? So I do not think it's appropriate to just change the date because we're worried about one particular
the
lawsuit.
voters
That's right.
have to approve it.
That's right, and that's why I asked you the word. Right.
You're exactly right, and I called myself on that earlier, I don't know how that would work. And go back to all the voters that voted on it and said, you signed a petition worded this way, you voted worded this way, we're just gonna willingly change the date. But my overall intent was.
To allow for the ADUs.
Yeah, because it seems like that alleviates a significant amount of risk rather easily. While upholding the spirit and intent, but I don't know, it's like I said, just a
If I understand-
suggestion, totally calling myself out on
I
that.
don't know if you can comment on this, or, I mean, I don't know how it works, but do we have current lawsuits on this issue? Not current.
Not today.
That's fine. Have we denied people since? Okay, so we have denied people that used to have the right,
For a few months, had the
for a
right.
few months had the right, and now they don't have the right, so they could sue the city, correct? Which is what Carrie says, there says, like, there could be a relief of this. Okay,
Denise has been.
I-
wanting to-
oh, sorry.
I do want to say, like it or not, this was a citizen-driven charter amendment. There is the will of the people. I would like to point that out. Whether or not we like it or not, there is something to take into consideration there. I don't love changing the date. I do like the idea. We had all of these questions, comments, taking this. There's things that are problematic. We've discussed it. I think we've probably heard a lot of this already on council.
Sure.
But I think we take that and say, we also could not come to a firm decision. This was recommended. We may not have a firm recommendation, but we have questions and concerns. And then we give it to them. I don't think that we're gonna rewrite this. I don't think it's a great idea to rewrite it because it was petitioned
By the citizen.
put by the citizens. It was put on the ballot. It was voted by the citizens.
Fresh.
Whether or not we like it, I'm not a big fan of a lot of things in it, but there is the will of the people, and I think that that should be considered too.
That's fair.
I would just add that, looking through that section on urban renewal, you know, with the look back of 10 years, it's like, why is this in the charter? It's so strange. I feel the same way on this one. It doesn't belong in our charter, back to my fundamental pace. This does not belong here. It was voted on. But I wouldn't mind having a statement in there that says, just fundamentally is the charter review committee. No matter what the date is, you look at it and everything is fundamental, and then all of a sudden there's this screeching halt on urban renewal, like,
Zoning.
where did that come from? And all of a sudden this thing on zoning came in. So I do feel like there could be a sentence in there that says, a certain portion of this group don't think that this belongs in our charter.
Well, and I think when we present this to council, because I think it's been very clear in this room that we are divided in some ways and united in some ways, it's the will of the people. That we can say this rose to the top as one of the top 10s. And the committee could not come to consensus on how
How to
run
tackle it.
How to tackle this, how to remedy it. Some suggestions were.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Show them all of our there's some great comments in there that people submitted. I mean, does zoning belong in the charter? More than one person said that in here. I think
Just
those
to
are
be-
things that are really important to let them know. We have this conversation.
Just to be devil's advocate on the position that the voters voted for it. Voters voted for all this crap.
At some point.
A long time ago.
Real quick,
Time ago. some of it-
real quick, if I can, just because we're at, yeah, and I know that some of you have a hard stop at 9 o'clock, is that correct? And is there anyone who can't go until 9? Or you prefer to be done by 8:30? I
That's the
mean.
goal.
I think we would all.
Yeah.
Okay, so after this section, we still do have one, the top 11, that we need to get to. And if we don't get to any of the others, we have our notes from previous meetings. They still will go forward to council based on those recommendations.
So I think I'm going to try to summarize it. So we heard, change the date, these are options, right? Change the date, change the male class, strike it through altogether. Wait until we get sued. You know, all of these are, I mean, there are things that we can do, right? I mean, at the end of the day, and I think those 4 kind of, or leave it as is, you know, that's fine. So I think those 5 kind of summarize our struggle with it, right? Like, you know, because we are like, you know, agreeing this, disagreeing that, and we can just present that as a council, like, because at the end of the day, the council can bring charter ordinance to the citizenry, right? And they can say, or they can explain through communication or everything, hey, we are opening up ourselves to risk, all right? And losing grants from the state government. As of right now, that's still the current case because of the courts haven't determined which way or whatnot. And through communication and education, they can say like, changing the date will allow us to at least get the grants and reduce risk, but it doesn't fix it, you know, so.
Did anyone say that it should stay as is and is already perfect? Because I thought even the supporters were saying, we've already gotten the date wrong, we've already realized we've made a mistake, we already need to make changes because of unintended consequences that are playing out.
I mean, I think.
I just didn't hear anyone say that.
No, I'm not saying staying as is, I'm just saying like, I mean, that this could be.
That is an option.
This could be getting dealt with.
Recommendations
later.
could be.
Yes, yeah, I wasn't saying like anyone in particular. So, right. I'm just saying that's
Or
another.
not have to get sued.
Right, that's the
charter
the
amendment.
last option.
So I will mention that last.
My
Is
stance,
that a good summary, I think, right, like that?
I think it's fine, because all of this is known by council. They did an executive.
Yeah.
There's not a single thing coming out of this room. They're gonna be like,
I was just gonna mention, I mean, if they had a study session, an executive session
Yes.
about this, they're already deep involved in it.
Right, I just wanna make sure
What
that.
you're doing is just adding a little spice.
I think it's important for them to hear.
I understand.
Opinion, you know, they appointed you to kind of be that. But yeah, I don't think that there's anything necessarily new that council has not considered.
But there is also the point that if a recommendation, or I mentioned some of the things that we struggle with, does come from us, the citizens, they could also put something forth to other citizens and say like, hey, this is not just our idea, it's also like other citizens have.
I'm really super careful with that though, because we're, what, 12 people?
No, yeah, no. I'm not
Statistically
saying we should-
significant enough to
Yeah.
say we're representing
No,
citizens.
not at all. I'm just saying that, you know, us, the citizens that were here, we struggle with this. And it's just like, these are some of the things that we came up with as a group. It's not, that they should take that into consideration. Okay,
Anything else on this section before we move on to 27? And then,
I'm just make a short comment going back to the first thing we talked about. If we were to pass something like making section 38 apply to the entire charter, no matter where that proposal came from, maybe it could also remove things that don't belong to the charter or move them to ordinance.
that would fly.
Yeah, I'd be really careful with
The charter cannot be amended
correct.
without a vote.
That's
And
not
so, like, to give arbitrary oversight that, hey, citizens initiated this,
That's correct.
it
Yeah,
passed, it went in, we don't think it belongs, we're pulling it out.
No, yeah.
That to me is disingenuous, whether it belongs in there
Or it doesn't.
or not.
I agree.
It's gone through the will of the people.
Also,
Right,
like,
and the
Josh.
thing is, we still. I don't want that magic.
I don't like disagreeing with
We
Josh.
still have a piece that's in the charter that says we have a volunteer fire department.
We do.
Yeah,
And if you
so,
can point out any of the members of that volunteer department, I would appreciate it.
yeah, so, I mean.
There are
in-
things.
In theory and in a perfect world, awesome, right? But that's not how this works.
Yeah.
And that's not how this should work. There's a mechanism in place for citizens to have their rules heard. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but to give a governing body the option to go, well, based on section 38, we don't think this belongs here, so we're not putting it there, we're gonna shove it in the code.
I agree.
I would preface the recommendation on 65.5 with the realization that 65.5 was written prior to the state doing what they did with ADUs. So.
No, that was 2024.
Absolutely.
In 2020.
Well, actually, Carol, I would like to ask you then, when was 65.5 written?
Probably February.
Okay, well, the state
2025.
statute
It
was.
didn't go into effect. It wasn't voted on
It was
till.
included in what city council was going to do in December and January prior to February. It was one of the things that
Because remember,
showed up in rejection.
65.5 came as a result of what the state had already said that they were going to put into effect. And we had this big discussion in December and in January. So 65.5 came after of what the state had already decided. It came before the city council taking action.
Which they had to separate out because there were
11/15 was passed in 2020.
2024.
And
HB 20.
effective date was June 30th.
That's correct. So, and we can, I can mention that.
5 items.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, so it was written, it just wasn't enacted.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
Okay, so, the last section that we'll have time. Okay, the last section that we'll have time to discuss tonight is section 27, council meetings open and executive sessions. Read.
This came in your guys' list of fun things, but it's really just that executive session. It had been changed over time and it's really restrictive based upon some stuff going on. We got some of it back. The one thing that's still missing that I had brought up is a possible, it's a challenge for me is when I'm really the only time I can meet with council to talk about things are when we actually have a lawsuit filed and not prior to having lawsuits filed. So there's a standard term under state law, which is it's basically called an instruction to negotiators. And so this is what it would be for a lot of claims, the ability to meet before they've actually filed quote unquote a lawsuit. And I'm not aware of any other municipality in Colorado that has gotten rid of the ability to do executive sessions. Boulder did at one point, but Boulder put everything back. So we're probably, as far as I know, most restrictive, although we do have a lot more of it back. That would be the one thing that I would like to have.
What section?
Reed, are you missing item number 2 that says it's only regarding legal action already filed in court of law, and you'd rather say something about notice to the.
I mean, you can change that section. Sorry. Are you,
Regarding any legal action and just delete already
Already
filed.
filed.
Does that do it? No, the case name.
yeah, that one was like his name and be able to announce on it. It's like, if I know I'm gonna get sued, I'd rather not have to get sued too.
So if already filed in court of law, if that was stricken and then the next sentence stricken, does that take care of it?
Does that give you what you need? I don't think it's all up there.
I would probably state it rather than trying to work through the specifics of the language, is to say to allow for executive session deal in some sort of term that says, been provided a notice of potential action,
Legal action.
and it could be eminent or not, but allowing a discretion in that we've gotten some sort of notice and that we're trying to deal with negotiation prior to the filing.
Is there verbiage in statute regarding this? that you.
State statute there is. yeah.
Discretion to negotiate.
Yeah.
You can look the language from the state
To
meetings law and put it in there.
Yes, and I'd leave it at that.
And just for everyone's edification, it is determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, instructing.
So we will grab that and allow council to discuss those things
In executive session.
in executive. Yes.
Yeah, man, seems reasonable to me.
Yeah, because right now, if I understand correctly, it has to be filed
Yes,
for you. Yeah, that's
You
not.
strike number 2 altogether, replace.
and replace
And
it with
replace.
with that.
I'm comfortable with that.
I don't know if it's striking anything.
Add to it, like, you know, just, yeah.
Can we call this one Reed's request?
That's exactly who.
Upon the request of the attorney.
So is, based on
Yeah.
Reed's description, is there anyone in the room that has concerns about making that recommended change to executive sessions to allow
And
the city attorney opportunity to confer with council, even if action hasn't formally been filed?
I guess, are there any guardrails in the state law? I mean, you said instructions to negotiate, but I mean, couldn't you claim like, well, hypothetically, we could get sued for anything, so I could go into executive session for whatever and say it's potentially a lawsuit? I mean, I'm just playing devil's advocate. I don't know. I'm just.
Love that to their own.
We don't like more meetings, man. We're not looking for reasons to meet.
Yeah, they're not looking for reasons to stay after they've already had a meeting.
Has it been abused ever before by other?
Probably, that's the reason why the rules are in place, right? But
And that's the reason why you record your exec sessions.
yes.
That
Review.
Yeah.
if there's a recording, I guess, like,
We hope we have council.
more amenable.
And we do have council members who are
I'm in there.
And we'll.
Baltimore law.
Right. No.
So that was the last section in the top 10 and a half, 11. And if we are pushing for a 30, we'll close. Before I turn it over to Jose, I just want to thank all of you for participating. No, you can have the big thank you, but because I'll cry if like, you know, I cry at everything. You don't know. This promotion ceremony yesterday, crying like a baby. And there were babies in the room that weren't crying. But thank you for, you know, humoring me every time I interrupted you and offered advice and we really could not do this without you. And I want to thank Mike and Reed for sitting by my side.
Pretty cool you finished with unanimity. That was awesome.
Can't.
I'd like to make a collective comment. Thank you guys for your input and giving us sort of the how-to, what needs to be done, giving us a perspective, because you're dealing with this all the time. So thank you.
So, just for our clarification, how is this going to proceed next, Colleen?
Jose and I had a conversation, so I'm gonna let him take that.
So the procedure, the next steps are, we're going to collect everything that we said, especially with the 11, I guess. And we're going to have a presentation to council April 14th,
April 14th,
April
at a study
14th.
session.
a study session. You are more than welcome to come, and, you know, be part of the audience of that session. My co-chair, and or vice chair, myself will be presenting some of the findings and trying to be as faithful to the language that we used in
Actually,
the.
only if you have a Zoom connection to sweep.
We'll make it happen. I don't know, actually,
Well,
is that even legal because of the?
yeah, but so if Phil can't be there, and we can certainly talk about it, you may want to ask
Someone
one
else,
or
yeah.
two other members to come sit.
That's fine, yeah.
And your dog.
Yes, and I wanted to thank everyone for being here and participating, being very passionate about the topic. I think that we should all be passionate about helping our city be a better place, and I'm happy about that. I think one of the areas that we all said that it was very important is the elections section. And if you've been keeping tabs on what's been happening at our federal level, I think we need to figure ways to give stronger recommendations to our council to make sure that we have free and fair elections, which we already do, but to strengthen that. Because it seems that unfortunately our federal level is trying to take away some of those freedoms from us.
Colorado has been an exemplar.
Right, yes. Colorado runs great elections. But I think that's one of the sections that I will maybe try to talk to Colleen and see if we can correspond before April 14th. Just to kind of like, if you have any ideas or anything else that can come together, because we need to make sure that, you know, the state of Colorado, but the city of Littleton as well has not only for participation purposes, but also to be able to say like, this is a place where we value everyone's input. You know, that's important. Thanks a lot. We appreciate that. I would like to, because there is a member of the public here, if you want to allow that member to speak for 3 minutes, I would like to allow that for the last time.
Only if she's listening.
I don't think we're done yet. Do that. I have questions.
Oh, that's fine. And, you know, we can, I guess, have a few extra questions or something. Yes, okay.
My assumption is that all of the comments on all of the other items which didn't make the top 10 are going to the council.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, so there were 38 that I presented to the committee. You ran.
Yep.
All 38 will go.
It's just that the comments today on the 11 were the major.
Yes.
Recommendations.
Yes.
Can I ask a quick clarification? This is for Colleen. It seems that like the last time we did this, right, there were a lot of recommendations, 10 years ago. And then they chose a couple of things to go on a ballot that didn't pass. But then, did they take other ones? Like what I would recommend is every time there's an election, take a ballot issue and put it on there, like, so that over 10 years,
During the tank.
we're hitting these things one by one on important.
Some of them may not be timely if we spread them out that way. And I mean, that's certainly a recommendation we can make to council. We have to consider too, that things come up and happen during those 10 years that need to go to a ballot or that council wants to put on a ballot. And I think that they're always going to be concerned with and considerate of ballot fatigue, right? Where folks are constantly seeing questions framed from the city council. And I would hope they would want to be considerate about what they're putting out there and kind of, you know, we've talked about it before, you know, having to weigh it like, is this the hill we want to die on, right? Like, is it really eating any hay? And certainly we can make the recommendation, but we need to be considerate of that ballot fatigue.
I agree with you.
Yeah, my quick comment a little bit on that, Dan, is, I think I had to, watching what happened last time, particularly, and how many items were supposedly cleanup, and I felt were maybe obvious that they should have been adopted and voted on. Entering this section here, and after all of our discussions, thank you everyone for that, realizing that the charter is going to be an imperfect document. It's never going to be absolutely current, and we can do the best that we can, but that, at least my thought is, we've hit the important items to give those suggestions to council, but recognize there's gonna be this screen, just this goddamn election, elected people, you know, that are somewhat imperfect and that are gonna make some sort of decision as to what's gonna go onto a ballot. Might they stage some of this? That's gonna be up to them. At least this council is gonna be able to 2 election cycles. So, without change, so they have a better shot. Last time it wasn't quite the same. So, they could stage items this time and next time or something like that.
I think that the issue is that since last time, there weren't any follow-ups, you know, like there was like, okay, we failed at these and there were never follow-ups. And I think that's something that we can mention. I agree with Dan that we can at least try, for example, like we talked about, one of the things of the amendments to the how often this group convenes, right?
Mhm.
You know, this didn't make it to the top 10, but we really thought that is something important. Because we have to clean up and do some of these things, and we said not to exceed 10 years.
Not to exceed 10 years.
Yeah, instead of the current thing, which is periodic.
Sometimes.
Like,
Decades before that.
yeah, for sure. Alrighty, yes, Carol.
I recall there, at the beginning of all of this, that there was going to be a discussion about whether we believe the recommendation should go, should we incur the expense of a special election for these, or should they wait for the next general election? And we haven't discussed
Would
that.
you like to make an argument for?
I don't know that there's anything that's desperate
I agree.
to be changed to incur the special election.
We don't need
We
it.
could wait for November of this year.
Yeah,
Other
Well,
things.
November of this year would be special. That would be an
Well-
expense.
No. This is a coordinated election.
We would coordinate.
But that's a special election. Our general elections are on
Odd
odd
years.
years.
Right.
But November of 26 would be a special election and
Right, but
there would be an expense.
There would be an expense, but it would be less because we would coordinate with the counties
I
first.
understand, I know, but citizens get regular calls when they put something on for a special election. And I just want people to be aware.
I don't think we need a recommendation not to put anything on the 2026 ballot. I don't see the need. I mean, city council are politically savvy operators. They know or in the end, well, at the next phase, they are gonna decide what is a priority, what they think can pass, how that needs to be worded. If they think something belongs on the 2026 ballot, there's nothing we can do to stop them either.
Well.
Oh, we can vote no. We cannot veto their.
Yes, yeah. Well, but I think it's a good thing to mention that,
Absolutely.
to say like, outside of coordinated elections, we don't really think that, for example, like the city of Lakewood right now is having a special election in April, right? And I have learned that.
I live there.
Oh, yeah. I have learned how difficult and not only the costly it is to do it, not even at the coordinated time, like, you know, so I don't think we found anything that was, we must do this
So
tomorrow.
the one thing, just for purposes of for timing. So if for some reason council took, say, the debt ceiling one, so you would be taking the debt ceiling one, and then in theory, you're paving the way to, at some point in the future election, bring a general obligation question, so.
That may be
I
expedient.
don't know if it would make sense to actually take that one prior to having to have a discussion.
That's understandable.
We're not.
Well, they have to consider whether it's expedient. Okay. Anyone else? If not, I'd like to allow for a member of the public to speak. Yes,
Are you talking?
I am. Let me know when you want to start. I'll press the button.
I'll count out loud.
We're fine taking Reed's chair, but we're not gonna take.
All right.
No one reads in it. I only dare when. See, I'm Pam Chadbourne. I live a block or so from here. Thanks for letting me talk. First, I want to let you know that the Next Generation Advisory Board decided to suggest that we do away with our off-year elections And because younger people vote less in off-year elections, they vote more in regular elections. I think that's a terrible idea and it's very narrow focus. And that board has kind of shrunk this year and had trouble in my opinion. But anyway, be aware that's going on. And I would like you guys to uphold the off-year elections that municipalities hold and that we hold. I want you to know that the packets are not online, and so it's very difficult for the public to follow what you're doing. And it would have been great to have this and all the material from this, at least online. And so I'd like you to advocate for your work to be posted. I also wanted to mention, our charter used to have in it that people would work for the general welfare. You know, the Constitution says that too. So you were talking about ethics and behavior and recusal and stuff like that. Add back that the folks who work with and for our government act in for the general welfare. That is what they're doing. And they need to take an oath for that. And so the question also is whether members of boards and commissions should also take oaths in addition to members of council. And that would include for the general welfare. That really is just upholding, you know, the Constitution, the state laws, and the charter. So that might be something to consider as well. I think the 2-year council position needs to be restored. We need to get rid of the direct election of mayor. That was presented the wrong way when it was given to voters. And we need to restore the 2-year at-large council position, and the presider of council should be selected by council each year. It's a problem now is that the mayor sets the agendas every 4 years and has that control for 4 years. It has caused big money to influence that mayor once every 4 years, and then we are potentially in trouble for those 4 years. If we get every 2 years the chance to elect 4 council members, that gives the people much more power and influence. And so I'd like us to reverse that problem where we got rid of the 2-year at-large position. And finally, we need a vote of the people before public property is transferred or sold. I want you to think about that because the city is talking about selling this property in Geneva Village. This is an asset for the people that we hand to the decades who come after us. We don't know what's coming, but if we give them property, it never is a bad thing. So please consider to sell public property.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here and for your commitment to these meetings. I appreciate it. Every comment and everything that we do. It's very important to the city. And while boards and commissions may have been filled this year, I highly recommend that you consider joining a board and commission to continue serving our city and helping in the different areas that we need. There are plenty, I think. We'll see if one of them would not be there soon. But thank you everyone for being here and for participating. This meeting is adjourned at 8:40.
Thanks, everyone.